Recently, a fund manager, Ross Gerber, called Elon Musk the most delusional CEO he has ever invested with. Ross also seems to be really unhappy with Elon's alleged drug use, even though Elon passed every single random drug test. And this is where Elon fires back at Ross. Would Ross Gerber pass a random drug test? Good question, says Elon Musk. Does look like he's on something in his recent interviews. Is he though? Let's take a look at this short clip from just now.
Does the board need to be rebuilt? It's only got 8 people on it. 2 are named Musk. It's got his buddy Joe Gebbia, who founded Airbnb. Got James Murdoch of the Murdoch, News Corp fortune. Do we need to remove some of them, add new people? How? What?
Well, this is the trickiest part for Tesla because essentially anything the board does, compensation or major decisions, can be challenged now by investors because, Delaware said the board isn't independent. And so it would be false and misleading to imply that they are. So they really need to get rid of 3 or 4 board members and replace them with truly independent board members that have no financial ties to Elon. And the problem with that is that Elon isn't going to want to deal with those people. And I learned this when I ran for the board a year ago. There's no desire from anybody at Tesla or within Elon's circle to have an independent board. Elon controls the company 100%, even though he only owns 13% of the company. But it's going to be very hard for the company to move forward with the current board. And this is, I think, one of the reasons the stock is selling off, is because changes have to be made if there's going to be legally binding things happen. But Elon certainly isn't going to like those changes. So how does this all work itself out? And I think that's the challenge Tesla investors are facing.
Looking at this short clip, Ross seems like Ross. I don't see any changes really compared to how Ross has been in the last 18 months. If Tesla follows the Delaware judge's reasoning, they would need to replace several directors. But Omar has a response to that. They do not need to replace anyone, and the judge did not say they need to replace anyone. All she said is that there wasn't proper disclosure, but I think Warren makes a lot of sense here. You might be correct technically in how she wrote her decision, but in the court case that will be filed against Tesla on the next compensation package or dual class voting structure or whatever they do, independence of directors will be an important issue. It seems to me that the judge has a problem with Elon personally, so that judgment was made before the case was fully heard. If the disclosure would have been totally fine, I think she would have found something else to have a problem with. Tesla has started paid advertising on X. Now, I'm not sure if Tesla really should advertise on X. I am specifically talking about the US. Elon can just repost something from Tesla and it's just as effective. But Tesla supposedly is now also advertising on Facebook. I haven't seen those ads, but people are talking about it. Generally, I don't think people are happy with this move by Tesla. Maybe if there's a way to advertise to people that do not follow Tesla on X, maybe it's okay to advertise on X in the US as well. But Tesla is running ads on other platforms such as YouTube. So this to me seems like one small part of a big campaign. Here's what Gary had to say about all of this. I still don't get why Elon Musk refuses to educate non-EV owners on the benefits of EVs. Lower cost, easy to charge, better tech, autonomy, superior performance, good for the environment. Great creative EV comms is fully consistent with Tesla's mission of accelerating the world's transition to sustainable energy. Comms shouldn't be to existing Tesla owners on YouTube and X. Tesla has to target ICE owners who don't know anything. Kathy Wood just cannot have enough of Tesla stock. She just keeps buying again and again and again and again. Now for the 8th day in a row. If you remember, a little bit over a year ago, ARK Invest was buying a lot of Tesla stock, and you know what Tesla stock did right after that. Anyway, some investors have accused Kathy Wood of pumping Tesla stock and that she doesn't really believe in what she says. But I would say that certainly her actions would tell you otherwise. She's definitely bullish on Tesla stock, otherwise she would not be buying so much every single day. Of course, one reason why Kathy Wood is buying so much Tesla stock is because she believes in robotaxis, but that's not all of it. In 2023, the best-selling vehicle in the world was the Model Y at 1.2 million units, despite a sticker price in the low 40,000s before incentives. Importantly, at prices of over $40,000, only about 5% of the market is addressable, but our research suggests that at $25,000, it expands to 50%. So they really like the idea of the next generation vehicle being a lot cheaper than what Tesla has to offer right now to consumers. Stephen Mark Ryan strongly disagrees with Piper Sandler's criticism of Tesla, where they said Tesla is having issues with its aging product lineup, basically. Steven says Piper Sandler have said accurate and useful things about Tesla. This is not one of them. Aging product lineup, translation, what is a Cybertruck? And also, it confuses us that Tesla uses the same name for their vehicles while constantly making incremental updates and occasional major refreshes. We are also confused how an aging Model Y, is the world's best-selling car. Now, to be fair to Piper Sandler, I believe they are referring to the next generation vehicle coming out at best probably at this point sometime in 2025, towards the end of 2025 probably. If you look at Tesla's history, pretty much everything has been delayed. This is no news really. But in the end, Elon Musk always figures it out and he makes it so that the delay is worth the wait. Short term, I do understand Piper Sandler's criticism, but in the long term, I don't think this really changes anything. In regards to the Cybertruck, Tesla is only projecting 250,000 deliveries per year. Whereas for the next generation vehicle, you know, we can easily expect 4 million and more based on the rumors that have been going around, based on how many units Tesla thinks it will produce. And that rumor is from April of last year. So we know that Tesla expects a lot from that next generation vehicle, but not so much from the Cybertruck. We got delivery numbers from China based on the insurance data. Occasionally someone comments down below, are these insurance numbers actually accurate when we later find out what the actual deliveries were? And the answer to that question is yes, they are very accurate. So unless being off by a few hundred is a big deal to you, I would take this data as actual data almost. And this week we got 10,600, so not a bad week, not a great week. It's a fairly okay week. There was quite a bit of hype though in China because of the Cybertruck in China. It turns out maybe that these sales are, or that attention is not really turning into a lot more sales in China unless Tesla was low on inventory in the last 7 days or so. But we can wait for another week and see if the sales are much stronger. Looking at cumulative Tesla China insurance data, so far this quarter, we are slightly ahead of the previous quarter in blue, which was the best quarter ever in China. So we have a good chance of doing really well this quarter as well. If there's a market that Tesla needs to attack with advertising, it would be Japan. Japan is one of the biggest automotive markets in the whole world. And yet last month, Tesla delivered less than 500 vehicles in Japan. I am pretty sure there were a lot more deliveries than that in Canada, and Canada is relatively small compared to Japan's auto market. Elon did mention Japan on the last earnings call, so there is certainly a big opportunity in Japan for Tesla, if it's done right. I mean, Tesla's market share in Japan is just 0.2%. It's basically non-existent. I mean, to see that Andrew Tate's country, Romania, sells twice as many Teslas than Japan. There's certainly a big opportunity waiting for Tesla in Japan if Tesla makes the right moves. Now, if you were paying attention, you just noticed that South Korea had only one single delivery in all of January, but that's okay because Korea hasn't confirmed its EV subsidy for this year. Normally, the first quarter is off-season for EV sales, so everything is okay in South Korea for Tesla. In the US, Tesla had the most growth compared to 2022 versus 2023, but it's interesting to see that all of these other makers pretty much also had positive growth. Toyota grew 4%, Ford 8%, Chevy 13%, Honda 32%, Nissan 22%, Hyundai 11%, Kia 13%, Tesla 34%. Only Jeep lost significant market share, minus 6%, together with RAM, but only -1%. Everyone else grew pretty well. If these legacy automakers don't get their EV strategy on point before Tesla releases the next generation vehicle, they are going to be so screwed. This is their last chance to get their business in order. SAP drops Tesla from its company fleet over price volatility. SAP is Europe's largest software company, and the decision to remove Tesla from their list of eligible company vehicles was mainly attributed to Tesla's unpredictable delivery schedules and frequent price adjustments. You got to remember that a lot of vehicles are still imported from China to Europe. So yeah, these ships can take quite a bit of time to arrive. And there used to be a big end of the quarter delivery wave, although we don't really have that as much anymore. SAP's fleet manager highlighted the difficulties in planning the heightened financial risk posed by Tesla's inconsistent pricing strategy, which diverges markedly from the more stable list prices of other manufacturers. The company has a fleet of 29,000 vehicles. That's their total fleet size. I couldn't find anywhere exactly how many Teslas they have. I assume it's not really a large number, so this won't really have a measurable impact, I think, or a noticeable impact on Tesla sales. I think improving affordability is very important for Tesla's future, but I don't like these arguments. 44% of Americans cannot pay an unexpected $1,000 expense from savings per CNBC. And here's why I really don't like using that argument. Just go back and just search in Google, which is what I did. And this article is from 2016, from 8 years ago. It says 63% of Americans don't have enough savings to cover a $500 emergency. Here's another article. This is from CNBC, so presumably it will have a similar methodology used for that latest article. This one says 41% of Americans would be able to cover a 1,000 emergency with savings. This is from 2020, and this is before bad things started happening, right before that. So it went from 41% to now 44%. It definitely got worse, but I think using that point is a weak argument, because I think when people use that point, it implies that before things were super good, everyone had money. No, people never really had lots of money, at least not in the last 10 years. So many people are just generally always broke, and it's not necessarily that in America people are broke. They just put everything on credit. They finance everything. So a better metric to look at, I believe, is income. How has people's income changed? And this is where the picture becomes a bit more bleak. Now, we had a great time from roughly about 2015 to 2019, and then that's where things started changing. Real median household income is declining right now, but that's nothing really new. It's very cyclical. If you look at when it's 2007 up until 2012 or 2011, it decreased pretty much every single year. And inflation is making everything else so much more expensive. Housing, food, everything. So even though if a car costs the same amount of money, because you're spending so much money on other things, you might end up having less money to spend on a vehicle. But looking at these charts I showed you earlier of US automakers growing year over year, that does not really seem to be an issue. But Tesla improving affordability is definitely not a wrong move, which is why I'm so looking forward to the next generation vehicle. This post from James Goff, 329,000 views. So many people are talking about it. So let's see what this is all about. The way to grow demand without more price cuts is to advertise. There is every reason in the world for Tesla to advertise and no reason not to. This is not rocket science. That's a pretty good dig at Elon. Just to offer my 2 cents from Thailand, advertisements in Thailand's car market will not do anything to grow demand. Model Y looks like an old car now compared to newer Chinese EVs. People who are hesitant about buying are concerned about insufficient Tesla superchargers and poor service. So far, some owners waited several months before they got their cars fixed. Yeah, some of these are valid issues. So superchargers, yes. Service, yes. these will improve over time. But the Model Y looking outdated, people are still buying lots of Model Ys in China. But yeah, I think a refresh will be helpful. Personally, I do like the look of the new Model 3 quite a bit more. Omar responded to James about advertising. Tesla began advertising last year. However, no amount of advertising can make new cars affordable to ordinary people. The idea that there is a quick and easy solution that management has completely missed is pure delusion. Gary responds to Omar by saying no amount of price cutting can educate ICE owners how cheap EVs are today, how easy they are to charge, the superiority of Tesla's technology, etc., etc., etc. Using the blunt instrument of price cuts in lieu of creativity is Tesla's Achilles heel, and is why Tesla's earnings estimates have plunged minus 44% over the past year. Tesla can blame high interest payments as the reason for cutting price. That's Tesla's own doing, since Tesla could have bought down interest payments instead at much lower cost with far less damage to Tesla's valuation. Omar makes 2 points here. I agree with the first one. The second one, I'm not really fully on board with. Both affordability and awareness are needed. Neither is a substitute for the other. I agree. But the second point, 38% year-over-year growth and 90% of Tesla buyers new to the brand suggests people are catching on. This point, I'm not fully on board with, because this year the numbers for deliveries are going to be substantially lower. To become the world's most valuable stock, Tesla needs to drive both affordability and awareness. The $25,000 vehicle will drive affordability, yes. But I don't see any progress toward educating ICE owners on why they should go EV. One of my friends, for example, recently was looking to buy a vehicle, and she thought that charging is extremely difficult. I explained that it's not really a problem unless you go on a road trip every single day. So after talking to me, she's now a lot more likely to buy a Tesla instead of a gas-powered vehicle. But right now, Tesla is currently running over 500 Google ads in the US market. And there are a lot of ads. You can see that all of these are video ads, and they are specifically shown in the US. I will check them out a little bit later and see if they are actually any good. But yeah, Tesla certainly seems to be advertising. James posted this: so it's easy to blame Elon when Tesla is in a perpetual downturn and the market is at the all-time highs. I don't blame Elon's extracurricular activities for Tesla's performance. If Tesla had FSD and 4680s where they wanted it by now, Tesla would also be at all-time highs, certainly, and it would have exceeded all-time highs by quite a bit. My point, Elon definitely shares some of the blame for Tesla's current position, and that position is very low growth for the next 2 years. But it's not because of Twitter, it's mostly because Elon has made big bets that have not yet, and the keyword here is yet, paid dividends, and some poor decisions with respect to strategic planning, which incidentally may not all be Elon's fault. If the Chinese cog blocked the compact vehicle to protect the domestic players, something I think is very likely what happened in 2021 and 2022. So can things have gone better? Yes, the next gen vehicle should have been out in Q1 of this year, not 2026. But again, maybe that's because of China. We will never know for sure. Another strategic mistake was putting all eggs in the 4680 basket for the Semi and the Cybertruck. Don't get me wrong, investing in 4680s was absolutely the right decision because 2170 is close to the limit of its iteration potential, and 4680s will end up being the far better batteries. The mistake was designing those two vehicles for an unproven form or factor with unproven supply. This delayed Cybertruck by 2 years and the Semi by many more and counting as of this moment. The good news though is that when Tesla solves the 4680 RAM with the dry manufacturing process and brings FSD to a point where people actually want to buy a Tesla, will still be, even a few years in the future, at a big competitive advantage against the industry. So maybe in a few years, this is a moot point. If one believes in 4680s and FSD, the future value of Tesla is very high, and FSD doesn't even need to reach level 4 or 5 for people to actually want to buy it. It just needs to be a very good level 2 and be priced appropriately for it. There is a lot of value to be unlocked in this scenario that no one ever even talks about. James certainly made some good points there. And it's so easy to get lost in all of this noise and the drama and some of the things being delayed. But looking back at Tesla's history, yeah, pretty much all of the important things were delayed at one point. But those that stuck with Tesla were rewarded extraordinarily. Now, there's a little bit of pushback against James. It makes no sense to blame China for Tesla's strategic mistakes. But if you remember, I reported a few times Tesla not being able to do what they wanted in China earlier. So yeah, there were many rumors of Tesla attempts to expand in China that fell through. But anyway, if you are a Tesla stock investor and if you have no patience, you are almost guaranteed to lose money. You need so much patience with Tesla stock. But it works in my favor because I'm still accumulating quite a bit. Here's an interesting data point. Tesla had a good January, at least in terms of web traffic, up 20% year over year. And last January actually was a really good month in terms of web traffic because there was so much news coverage about Tesla's massive price cuts. And beating that, that's a pretty good accomplishment. It appears that Tesla will also do a Cybertruck tour in Europe, specifically in Germany, this spring.